All right, let's do this. Everybody hear me okay? Good. All right, let's start. So we're going to talk about NServiceBus and how it's a framework full of various features for messaging and workflow orchestration in .NET. I mentioned earlier today's webinar, we only have an hour, but there are code demos and player demos. So talk about who we are and about the particular platform. Talk about the different demos that we're going to show. So last month we were talking about domain events in eShop on web. This month we're using eShopOnNServiceBus because it's an NServiceBus version of it. And we'll talk about domain events, RabbitMQ, .NET Aspire, and Sagas. But before we get into the code, let's just make sure that you all are aware. NimblePros is a particular software partner. We use particular platform with many of our clients, and so this is something that our team is very well versed in. In addition to being particular software partners, two of my teammates are known as what are called particular software recognized professionals. So think of them like the Microsoft MVP, Java champions. This is that of the NServiceBus in particular platform. So Eric is our principal architect, and Kyle is one of our other architects. They are all about particular software's platform, and any questions that I have, if I can't find it, I end up going to them. They are spectacular to work with. Now, Kyle, he's been doing blogging on our blog since early 2024 on NServiceBus, on messaging, on commands, on events, whole platform. And has a mini series within the series called Supercharged Sagas. So you're going to see a little bit of those here today. I do not cover everything that he has in the posts because there are a lot of them. So I'm not going to get into the testing techniques or the testing strategies or the timeout stuff. Very high level today, but we have blog posts so you can learn more. But before we get into NServiceBus by itself, I want to make sure we get into the big picture. So with this big picture, this is the platform. We have NServiceBus. This is where our endpoints are. This is where we have our messaging, where we have like pub sub or request and response, those kind of patterns. You'll see those. Notice that we send a message to a queue. We could send a message to an endpoint. Or there's this thing called service control. Service control is in the middle of two other products, which is ServicePulse and Service Insight. I do not have a demo for Service Insight, but a lot of the things that I see in the Service Insight checklist, I also see in ServicePulse. So we'll look at ServicePulse when we get into the .NET Aspire and the Sagas part. Service control is a back-end part. I might be able to show you some of the code, but just know that it's there. This is the platform as a whole. But what is service control? So that's that middle part. And that's basically, it takes in the information from NServiceBus about the messages, and it then is able to feed it over to ServicePulse and Service. But this gives us real-time monitoring and visualization. Now, the first demo that I show is going to be just NServiceBus, but then the rest that have the Aspire tooling with the platform, you'll see some of these other tools come into play. And you can do custom checks. We will not show custom checks today, but they are a possibility. There are three different types of service control issues aware of. So there's errors, there's audits, and of course there's monitoring. And we'll see use when I go into a demo with we'll use NServiceBus with RabbitMQ. Additional things to know with service control through plugins. So you'll see the monitor endpoint health. I'll show you how we do that, again, using the Aspire setup. That can collect Saga state changes. I'll point out how we install the Saga plugin in order to get the Saga diagrams when we talk about Sagas. Custom checks. So the custom checks allow you to do things like looking at endpoint connections over other resources. So do you have that connection to that intranet you're looking for, or the connection to the internet, or the VPN connection? Make sure you connect to the broker. That's kind of important. Make sure messages aren't getting stuck. Are they sitting in a queue and just failed and not getting retried? Are they going into dead letter queues? You can watch for these. Also, monitoring your storage and all the other requirements that come with that, and the availability, the accessibility, any storage quotas, all of that can be taken care of in service control through plugins. What's Service Insight? Service Insight is one that allows us to do advanced debugging. It allows us to visualize the long-running sagas, to monitor this down to the specific message. This is a good developer tool. This is for getting into the details of how things are working, understanding a message's performance, and it gets into the more detailed error messages. Now, that said, we'll take a look. We don't have Service Insight, but we do have ServicePulse. And a lot of these things here, I can show you where it's at in ServicePulse. In ServicePulse, what is ServicePulse? So think of ServicePulse, this is your production monitoring. Your performance monitoring, system health checks. We will see endpoints. We'll have the heartbeat set up. I'll point that out in our configuration so that you're aware of how do I have these things talking to the parts of the platform. Availability monitoring, the ability to reprocess failed messages. And if time allows, there will be a part where I will kill one worker so that you can see what happens when the endpoint goes to unhealthy, and then what does that look like for retrying. It is so neat. All right, NServiceBus. Let's talk about NServiceBus. As I've mentioned with NServiceBus, it is messaging and workflow orchestration. And there's the enterprise integration patterns that Gregor Hopi, might be mispronouncing his last name, but that's a website where you can see all the different patterns that are out there that we use in enterprise architecture. And NServiceBus does follow many of those patterns. It does work with publish and subscribe, request and response, message routing as well. Now, with NServiceBus, there are a variety of reasons why you would want to use it. There's reliability. There's the whole being able to guarantee delivery. There's dead letter queue handling. There's transactions. Got those. We've got scalability. There's the ability to do things asynchronously, which is what we use in our demo. High throughput, optimized performance, things like that. So there's that. There's a lot of support though in both their documentation. So they do have great documentation. I got to give a shout out to their docs team for that, as well as for the samples. So the samples that I'm showing today are with eShopOnNServiceBus. This SimplePros maintains eShop on web, and it just made sense to do a version with NServiceBus because we support the NServiceBus and other particular software platform tools as well. So that's why I'm going to show eShopOnNServiceBus. However, particular software has a GitHub repo with a bunch of samples. Very well done. All right. I was rushing through those because I want to get to the code. I know many of you are just like, oh, code time, please code time. I got you. All right. The first demo I'm going to show you is eShopOnNServiceBus. I want to show you. So this is going to go back to last month's webinar when we talked about domain events. eShop on web, when an order was created, we had an event for that. So with that event, we end up sending that to an NServiceBus endpoint, and that gets handled over there. I'm going to show you the code for that. But something I'm going to point out is that we're going to be using NServiceBus's LearningTransport only for this demo. I can't stress this enough. The LearningTransport is great for learning how to work with NServiceBus, but it is meant for development only. Do not use it as something for production. It's not for use in production. If you're working with the LearningTransport and NServiceBus, make sure you add the LearningTransport folder, so the .LearningTransport, and that's here you get. You don't need to check that in. Okay, let's go look at the code. And that's just so you see, in case I forget to show, that's what it's going to look like. Is our configuration will tell it use transport, LearningTransport. These are the keys that you're going to talk about, which are orders, audit, error. So let's flip over to those. If you have any questions, please feel free to post those questions in chat. We do run a subscribers only chat to minimize spam. So once you're subscribed for 5 minutes, then you can chat. If you have any other questions, if you've signed up through our website, you'll get an email at the end with all the links to support all the things you're seeing here today. Feel free to reply to that email that goes directly to me. Oh. All right, first things first. Let's take a look at this. So I am in eShopOnNServiceBus. I am running it in Maine. So I have 3 different branches, or possibly 4 that I may show today. What you need to know about this. So first, I have my domain event, my order created event. So when I'm shopping on eShopOnWeb, when I go ahead and order, it's going to publish this. I'll show you the event itself is I'm capturing the ID, buyer ID, order date, capturing pretty much as I can for the orders. So that's what's going on here. The key thing to know is that it is got this iMessage, and that's part of the NServiceBus setup. All right, so that's my domain event. And I have my service, and in my order service, open up, you can see I'm in create order async. So when I create the order, it's going to do some stuff converting from basket to order. And we will revisit basket to order in another demo, so that's why I pointed out here. Then once we do this add async, okay, order's created. Now let's go ahead and publish the event. So what do we have? We have this order created event with all of the things that we want to see. Then we have this message session. This message session, up to the top you'll see projected up here by message session _ message session. That is going to do a send. Now, again, this is using NServiceBus. I'm going to send the event, and we're not passing a cancellation token. If we had a cancellation token, pass the cancel. Okay, so we go from here, our domain event, create the order, send, or we publish the event. What's picking it up? That's where we get into the NServiceBus part. So I have our program.cs. And the reason why I want to show program.cs, so this is program.cs for the web. Hover over it, you can see the path is on the web. I've scrolled down because there's a lot of stuff in it, but this use NServiceBus is the critical piece. Now with this use NServiceBus, I put in a separate method just because registration. We go into it, you can see some of the things. So this is going to create a new endpoint, the configuration of orders, telling it which serializer I'm working with. For this particular demo, we're using the LearningTransport. So I am not hitting any other brokers or things like that. This is what it is. And then the route to endpoint is, okay, I have an event. The event is specifically my order created event. That needs to go to the orders endpoint. I also have in here 2 other queues, and that's the error and the audit. So failed messages will go to errors, audits go to audit. That's the endpoint configuration. Now I have this pulled away because I end up using it later when we get into more setup. In another demo, you'll see that. Okay, so in the program.cs for web, we have to say, anytime we have a domain event of some type, we have to tell it where to go. That's what's going on in the routing part. Okay, so now it knows to go to the endpoint. Where's that endpoint? In this case, we have it as a worker. I'm going to close up web. And our eShopOnWeb.worker. This is our NServiceBus worker. Got our program.cs. So you can see no tricks up my sleeves. We've got console lifetime, use the NServiceBus. There's that get NServiceBus configuration again. And again, this is going to make sure that it routes everything as it needs to. So that order created event is going to come to the orders endpoint, which is where we're at. Where's it getting handled though? So in this particular demo, I have a handlers folder. If we look at the handlers folder, so here's our handler. Things to note with the handler. So I'm passing in a logger because I log all the things for a while until I'm more confident in what it's doing. But there's this I handle messages. I handle messages plus the message type helps because then it knows, okay, anytime I have an order created event, based on all the routing I set up with my NServiceBus stuff, I will find a handler that's going to be able to handle this event type. And that's what this one does. And so what does it do? It just does a log, and then it says test complete. That's it. This particular demo is just showing that you can use NServiceBus to use it for passing along domain events. You could add your own logic and do a whole lot more, but for demo and time, kept it short. All right. So this is the start of NServiceBus, where we're using events and routing them. But there's so much more. So let's go back to our slides. So the next demo I want to show you is using RabbitMQ. We have a .NET producer. We have a Python consumer. So this is going to be a demo that shows NServiceBus with RabbitMQ, because when we're working with others, you might need to go to a different message broker. And in this case, I'm going to use Python, well, because we're going to say that there's an external team and that's what they use. NServiceBus makes sense for distributed systems, larger systems. My demo is not that large, but I can at least simulate some of these situations. So let's do that. Just so you know, with that, we are going to be using .NET Aspire from here on out. The reason for that is I like having most of my dependencies containerized, installed on my machine. We are going to be looking at ones that matter for us. Messaging, that's our RabbitMQ. And we have our eShopOnWebWorker, that's our NServiceBus endpoint, API, and the web. You don't need to worry about Seek, I just acknowledge that it's there. For our RabbitMQ queues, so we've got the NServiceBus installer that's going to run for that. And of course, audit error and orders are still going to be there. There's going to be a bunch of other queues that get generated. We're not going to look at those. Just know that if you see them, don't panic. So we're going to do a .NET producer, which is eShopOnNServiceBus. This is going to be a different branch. When the order is created, that order created event is going to get published to the orders endpoint. And then our endpoint configuration is going to be pretty standard. The things I want to point out before we get into code directly, though, is that there is a bunch of demo code intentionally in there because it makes our lives easy to demo. But like the connection string, dependency injection, pass that in from that's fine. The routing, we'll change out how we do that later, but this is kind of what we're working with. We have a Python consumer, and why Python? It's quick and easy for a demo. I like using Python for a scripting language. The Python script for this demo, so you'll see it in .NET Aspire because it met with some of the .NET Aspire folks who wanted me to try this out. But we're going to run it separately in Visual Studio Code. So think of it as other teams might need to listen for certain events and then act on them. And that's why we're doing this demo. And when I think about it from like a shopping thing, fraud detection is typically not done in C#. Payment processing done in C# might be done in other languages. The language shouldn't matter for your consumer. Okay, we've got the Python code. We'll look at the code here shortly. Output, you will see Studio Code and the pulp. Okay, let's flip over to our Visual Studio. This time, we're going to go to RabbitMQ transport. Have any questions so far? Any questions? Let's do this. I'm going to pull Python. Loading like it's supposed to. Cut over. Okay. Oh, I don't want to install 10 million tools. Thanks, BS. All right. so now I am in Shop on Web NServiceBus fork, so eShopOnNServiceBus, and I've got Python scripts. Now, the Python script, just so you're aware, I'm going to change this to my Python with NServiceBus demo, and I'm going to run Python combined. I've got a Python script that I'm running. Oh, it's going to fail because I don't have the, you have to have the Aspire running so it can actually connect to RabbitMQ. So this is going to go to RabbitMQ. I've got a Rabbit user and password. Nothing special on the Python side other than we're going to listen for things, and things we're listening to are, we've got orders and payments. We're not going to take this into a full demo. You'll see that I can write to payments, but I'm not getting formal in what I'm writing. I'm just saying, okay, I've received it, and by the way, I processed the payment. Pretend that time has passed. Then it'll send payment process. So we've got some output cues to help let us know where it's at as well. All right, so on the Visual Studio side, again, they're separated intentionally because this is typically an external team. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run this with Aspire. You can tell I'm running it with Aspire because I've got the app host set. From here on out, I'm using Aspire because it's just here. So you can see the part where you're like, oh, it's unhealthy. Some of these services take a while to start up, so don't panic if you go to run things in Aspire and you're like, it's still an unhealthy state. You eventually get comfortable with the app in that. Now, what do I have? So I have the web, I have my public API, this eShop on Web worker, this is my NServiceBus endpoint. That Python queue listener, that's the script that I'm going to run in the background. It will run here, but I'm actually going to stop it here because the thing we don't have for this is we don't have standard output. So those prints that I have in the script, I can't see in here just yet. I already talked with some of the .NET Aspire folks about that, so they know that I've run into this. And then we have this messaging part as well. So this messaging, that's my RabbitMQ. Just to show you again, no tricks. RabbitMQ, my Rabbit user and Rabbit password. Behind the scenes, we've got RabbitMQ up. So there's our audits and errors, orders and payments. Now let's go back. Now that that's up, let's go ahead and run this. You'll see this is waiting for messages. We'll come back to Visual Studio Code in a little bit, but let's go back to our player. Right. Those are going. RabbitMQ is going. Everybody else is healthy, so let's go shopping. All right, so this is eShop on NServiceBus. I'm just gonna do a couple. Let's check out. And yes, my browser's going to tell me, hey, that password, I want to change it. I'm going to be like, it's in plain text in the read demo. It's okay. All right. So then we're going to say checkout. And we'll continue shopping. If you look over here, let's see. There we go. There's a audit. Shopping some more. Our cup of tea. Third of cup of tea. Out. One more point. It's being set up as quorum. Sometimes it picks up nicely, sometimes it doesn't. Okay. So, for how I said that Python was going to be RabbitMQ, so .NET, in this case, eShop on NServiceBus, what's creating domain event? It's creating this here. received, that's coming from the .NET app. This is my Python app. How does that happen? RabbitMQ. So we're using NServiceBus to send to RabbitMQ. Python can listen to RabbitMQ. Get it. But why would we do this? Again, because this is typically used environments which multiple dev teams, all sorts of languages, want to be able to communicate, right? And ServiceBus can do that. All right, so we showed in the Python script, there's not much going on, but what's going on in the .NET side of things? Let's flip over to the code. Okay, so we are now in this RabbitMQ transport. And of course, there's our order created event. Nothing changed with the order created. I left it as is. In fact, I didn't even change the order service for the demo. The order service is still going to send it using the message session. So we're good there. The order handler, anything really changed there? No. Nothing really changed in the handle. So then, what happened? How does it know to go to the RabbitMQ? This is where we get into things like the Git and ServiceBus configuration and the installers. Installers are there to create ahead of us. Now that's why you saw those before we even started going shopping, is those NServiceBus installers will make sure that the NService endpoint is set up nicely. Now, what exactly is going on though in Git and ServiceBus configuration? Because you know at this point, we're not using the LearningTransport. That was just for the first demo. The rest of these demos are using the RabbitMQ transport. So you'll see that we're still using orders. And we're still going to use the same serializer. For this demo, I don't know why I chose direct routing. We ended up changing some of it. But we send it to our queues. This is my RabbitMQ that is spun up in Aspire. Again, we can pass it through DI. I changed it all in the next demo, so wouldn't panic too much. But the key in this is right here. This transport to the RabbitMQ. That's how it knows to go from NServiceBus to RabbitMQ. And then Python listens to RabbitMQ. There's not a lot of work I have to do other than making sure of a couple things. Making sure that I have the right connection string. When you're dealing with RabbitMQ, if you aren't familiar with RabbitMQ, you want to make sure that you're going to the AMQ port, which is 5672 by default. If you send it to the TCP port for some reason, if you don't specify the port, that's where it goes, and that's the wrong type. So be warned, pay attention to your connection string, make a difference. The other thing is making sure that your routing topology and your type match with whatever you're going to be the other end. There's direct, and there's conventional, and we'll use conventional. Conventional is the preferred. Use that in the other one. The other thing I have to point out that I use in my demos that I cannot stress enough is this disable remote certificate validation only in dev. Do not do that in production. Just because certificates in dev, we all know certificates in dev can be a pain, and so that's why I have that here. But, and again, nothing else changed except adding the RabbitMQ configuration. So that is our RabbitMQ demo. Again, RabbitMQ helps when you have teams in multiple languages, because it doesn't all need to be like, oh, well, I'm publishing in C#, it must be consumed in C#. That's not true. There are actually more libraries out there in other languages that could help with the translation of that. So, all right. Next one we want to show are going to, I'm going to pull the Sagas branch. The reason why I'm pulling the Sagas branch is because Sagas branch has everything I wanted to show with .NET Aspire better. Oh, and the message pump. I'll go back and show the message pump as we show the next section as well. What questions do you have so far? help to see the why too, having that Python separated. Trying to be very intentional with that. All right. Next up is going to be the particular platform with .NET Aspire. I'm going to show that, and then we'll go right into the Sagas. So let me show you the slides for those, and then we'll go right into the code from there. With the particular platform, their documentation for getting onto Aspire is really straightforward. So we will show you ServicePulse, and I'll show you the failing heartbeat. I'll show you how it goes healthy. I can force it to fail. Look at retrying messages. So this is when I talk about heartbeats. I can check to make sure that the endpoints are healthy or unhealthy. So we'll look at the code for that. On the healthy, unhealthy, setup and configuration. You know what, let's just jump right to the platform. All right. So again, I'm in the Sagas branch. At the end of the day, I will probably eventually just merge it all down the Sagas branch because everything makes sense with it. So you're like, when is this all going to be there? It's all there now. If you go to the Lap Around NServiceBus, all of these branches I'm demoing are there now. But yeah. All right. So let me show you my app host. Program CS for that. Close all these. Go away all tabs. Just a program CS. Because what this has is this is the .NET Aspire for this project. And we have a bunch of things going on. So there's Seek. This is our RabbitMQ. Now they have a default guest account, but then it gets all sorts of like limitations. So I was like, well, forget guest. I'm going to do Rabbit user to Rabbit password for now. I do open up 5672 because there are times when I work with it locally as well. And then this with management plugin, that's how it's easy for us to install the admin plugins for a lot of these different tools. So for example, on one of my projects we use Aspire and we use Postgres, I could add a with management plugin and it gives me admin very easily. Love Aspire for that. Anyhow, the RabbitMQ server, I'm using Aspire for that. Now let's look at particular platform. So the stuff you're going to see here comes from their documentation. So it's an easy lift and shift as needed, except there are little gotchas, and I'll point those out. So the particular platform uses RavenDB in the background. Then we've got there, this is where it's talking about the quorum and conventional routing. So instead of using direct routing like we do in one demo, we're going to use the conventional routing. So these are set up first for the service controls RavenDB backend. And we set up the audit. Notice it points at RavenDB. Got its HTTP health check. Well, and of course, this is going to wait for RabbitMQ and for RavenDB before it sets up the service control audit. The features I love about Aspire, you're going to hear me talk about Aspire next month. That's next month's webinar topic. I really like it though, just because I have all of the dependencies containerized. I am a Docker girl, love my Docker, love my dev containers. So Aspire, it just fits in there. All right, service control itself. So next, how do we spin that up? And that needs the RavenDB. That needs the transport, which is the RabbitMQ. Then we're going to do service controls monitoring. So remember we talked about audit, we talked about errors, we talked about monitoring. Again, also needs to wait for the transport, so it also needs to wait for RabbitMQ. ServicePulse. ServicePulse uses audit, monitoring, and service control. So those, when I pointed out earlier at the beginning, that service control is that middleware part for it. This is how you see it all together. And then we need to tie things into particular platforms, so we do some waits here as well. We're going to wait for ServicePulse on things like the API, the workers, the web, waiting for RabbitMQ as well. And then we have NServiceBus baskets. So we have orders, we have baskets is going to be the new endpoint we do in this case. Because for Sagas, we're going to check watching a basket go to order complete. So it's basket create, the order create, the order complete. I'll remind you that when we get closer to the Sagas part. But for now, understand that this is when I click the HTTPS to start it, you're going to see all these platforms. Let's start this. Office healthy. Okay. Management Studio, that's Raven Management Studio. Transport is up, that is our RabbitMQ. And ServicePulse, up ServicePulse now, just so you can see that it shows everything is working as expected. Heartbeat. The minute or two to go up. Right now they're unhealthy. Don't panic, everything is just starting up. It will eventually go over to healthy. Over here, everything looks okay. There's nothing else in here. You see, it'll tell you, hey, you have notification of heartbeat. I check here, notice, no longer unhealthy, you're healthy. So when we're first spinning up, if ServicePulse comes up or they're ready to go, they start unhealthy. It's okay, don't panic, that's expected. All right, these endpoint heartbeats will track of everything that's going there. We're not going to look into monitoring much other than it's going to say, hey, I'm picking up these things. I'm not going to look into the details of monitoring, but just so you can see that the heartbeats does come all up just fine. Now, the other thing is going to be our all messages. Nothing there yet. Shopping. So we go back to eShop on web. And we'll do some shopping. We're still logged in as our demo user, so we can do this pretty quick. Because I know I have some Saga stuff going on right now that I don't want to talk about. We're fast through this. You know, I say super fast is because I have timeouts and stuff with the other stuff. You know what? I gotta go to a family reunion in a couple weeks. Let's get cups of tea for everybody. That's about 225 people, I think. Update it and let's check it out. And all right, got some orders in the system. So if we go to ServicePulse, now I didn't have my auto refresh turned on, but I can say every 15 seconds I could refresh. You can see what's going on. For this demo, I've added more things. I've added another event. I've added another command. I have the BasketCreated event, and then I have the OrderCompleted event. And I have a command to do basket tracking, and that's used for our Sagas. So what's nice about ServicePulse is you can see all these messages. And then when I select a message like OrderCompleted, I can see the message body. I can see the headers. I can see how things flow, which is pretty neat. There's the sequence diagram. So how did we get here? Then my favorite with the Sagas is the Saga diagram. I can either show the message data for everything, or right now it doesn't show by default. It'll show. Then I can follow it through. Okay, what did this do? I can see there's my basket ID. We started a basket. And then the basket converted to an order. There's a timeout because a certain amount of time. Created an event for the order. So we go from basket to order, changes to an order, so that's the order created. Then there's another timer that's going on between order creation and order complete. Then this will catch it as to whether it actually within that time or not. So Sagas are good for long running processes. So that's why doing something shopping wise, so going from making a basket, so just general shopping to, no, I really want to order this. Okay, I'm going to actually buy it. It's a long process. For today's demo, I have it set to 30 seconds. That is very intentional. Okay. So this is in ServicePulse. Now, might be worrying, well, what if I do this? What if I say, my worker, oh wait, if I go to my orders, just stop order. Yes, I like to cause chaos to happen. And we're gonna go back to shopping while the orders is down. You might be like, but what? Thing is, when I do these webinars, it is important for me to show you that can break so that you know how to deal with them. Or so that you can see the different capabilities of the platform. So we're gonna go shopping. I'm gonna say, let's check out, got that. We're gonna generate a bunch of things that should be going to our orders. Sweatshirts, hey, it's got a hoodie. You know what? I have a bunch of friends who need hoodies. Let's give it away at a conference or something. Okay. Those. Now, that said, what's going on? Oh, we have heartbeat issues over in ServicePulse. What's going on in the heartbeats? We have an unhealthy endpoint. There's our orders. Now, we intentionally killed this on purpose so that you can see what happens. Get that notification. If you want to see monitoring, you'll see that it shows some things, but it'll come back and say, oh, everything is mostly okay except orders. Messages, we have things going on there. Failed messages, doesn't show them right now. Tell this to refresh. And our heartbeat is still showing. Messages should be showing up in failed. Let's go and look at them in RabbitMQ just to make sure. Go into RabbitMQ transport. Streams. There's my orders. I still have stuff sitting out there. So, well, we're gonna go ahead and bring this back up. Orders are happy. Again, go back shopping while we're waiting for things to come up. I said I have things in the timeouts for about 30 seconds. So that if it's not fast enough, it'll complain. I'll check out and I'll just sit at that. All right, our queue orders has 1 unacknowledged. Look at ServicePulse. Pulse. Got custom checks. The Saga, yeah, we had some Saga, that's fine. Or why it didn't pick up the failed messages this time. What it can do is it can fail. And if you do have failed messages in here, messages will appear by their name. And then you can look at them and look at them either individually, retry individually, or you can retry them all in a group all at once. But fine now. Maybe I just didn't leave it down long enough. All right. All right, so you're seeing this stuff in action, but what does this look like code-wise? Nothing else going on here. Off. Shows you the Sagas, long-running processes. Shows you what it looks like for the Saga Diagram. I can go in there one more time. Just go to my all messages. Oh, to be clear, I am running a trial license. That's what it shows at the bottom of this. Trial license, non-production use. This is demo code. This is most definitely not a production server. Getting the trial license is easy. And ServiceBus, the particular folks have an email that goes out to tell you where to put the license file. It works nicely. The other thing I want to show you with that is if I go into my orders, for example, top right here. Let me it is that you can see where it's looking for the license. So trial license, but again, I'm showing you a lot of features for a trial. So they make it easy. In case you want to see any of the other logs, so we talk about the service control. ServicePulse does look for those things. Service control itself is what's going on in the background, so you can see that there's notes there about audit messages, how it's misconfigured and should be changed. I'm going to look at the configuration change why that way it shouldn't. Our public API. All the console logs are here. Python script, like I said, didn't have standard out, and so that's why I took it out for this one. Transport, again, this is how I can check to make sure things were working with RabbitMQ, making sure that permission ports are set properly. All right, let's close it. Let's see the code. How all is this happening? So as I mentioned in our code, we have our events. And our events are in core. And we have our entities. And in our entities, we have a basket entity and an order entity. We have a buyer one too, but that's not going to be helpful for the stuff we're tracking today. I have events full the aggregate. Those events are going to be related to the aggregate that they are in. So BasketCreated is in our basket aggregate. Our events for OrderCompleted and OrderCreated are in order aggregate. Now, just so you can see what's in them, standard events, so just tracking information. There's a calculated component here, the only component as well, and OrderCompleted, a bunch of properties. So events themselves are containers of being able to store whatever data we need to capture for those events. Mine are usually pretty detailed to make it easy. Capture that context right there. Other thing you're going to see is our commands. So I have our basket to order conversion incomplete command and our start basket tracking command. So start basket tracking, what's going on there? This is going to be used when we deal with Sagas. So Sagas, we'll look at how we build that here real shortly, but just know that this command is that I command, the interface that we're using here, coming from NServiceBus, and there's just a basket ID. Same thing, another one that's tied to our Sagas. Again, we're using basket ID to track it all the way through the process. Don't have any commands in order. It's all going to be in the basket side of things. All right. Looked at the main events. We're going to take a look at where they dealt with. We have our services. We have our basket service. And in our basket service, we have add item to basket. Our add item to basket, we check to see if the basket is null, we need to create the basket. So that's where I put in the BasketCreated event. Again, we use that message session and send the BasketCreated event. Now, where does it know? It already knows about the orders and how to send the order created there, but BasketCreated doesn't go to orders. How does it know? Well, we had to change our code for that a little bit, but not much. So if we go into our program.cs for web, down a minute, and ServicePulse is down here. Now, for this case, I mentioned I did change the code a little bit, and so register multiple endpoints. I'm going to jump in there. It goes into the routing part of it. So the routing part, route to endpoint. So you can see that I have route to endpoint for order created and basket created, how those get sent to their different endpoints. Order created goes to orders, basket created gets baskets. That's what's going on behind the scenes. There's, of course, our send failed messages, our audit processing. Then here's our send heartbeat too. So with this being our demo of both the Fire tooling and the Sagas, this is how it knows to do heartbeat. So all of our endpoint configurations will have a call to send heartbeat to, pass it over to service control. We do have metrics at there. We're not going to have enough time to look at those, but know that this is what happens when we send them. Configuration looks like. All right. That's those endpoints. Then we have, I'll scroll up so you can see, we also do the basket created, goes to baskets. Our basket tracking command is going to orders because that's where the Saga lives. All right. For our sagas, we're using learning persistence, and that's learning persistence, learning transport, dev only. Do not use these in production. I'm very explicit on that. All right. Other thing is audits. That's the audit process messages. All right, let's go look at workers. We have 2 workers now. So we have our shop on NServiceBus baskets and ServicePulse endpoint. And we have our handler. When the basket is created, just do some logging. Then the send start basket tracking command. This is a, hey, by the way, now that we have a basket, let's track it. Let's track it to see how it goes from basket to order conversion and from order to order complete. So this is where we start our saga, by sending this command. Handling this though, well, this not this handler. This handler is handling the BasketCreated event. Of course, we need to figure that out. Well, again, with our routing and our configuration, you know that that's going to our orders endpoint, which is this eShopOnWebWorker. Notice when I expand it, there's a lot more going on in there. So let's look. First, we have this basket to order completion saga. So saga tracking the whole path through. Close all the other tabs. Make it a little easier for us to. So we have the saga that we're going to deal with. Have the data that we're going to be tracking. How does the saga get started? Well, this is started by, in this case, it's started by the start basket tracking command. Now, our saga also other commands and events along the way, so we put those in here too. So we have iHandle messages for the start basket tracking command, order created event, order completed event. We have the basket to order conversion incomplete command. So if I didn't go from basket to order in a certain period of time, a timeout will occur. And then basket to order conversion saga timeout. Those two will look at the code go hand in hand. Then there's the order completion saga timeout, which is going from order creation to order completion short amount of time. Didn't happen, then that timeout's going to expire. And again, for demo purposes, they're short, very short. Now there's configure how to find saga. And so you need to say, well, this is how you figure out where you're at. And so we have this basket ID. Let me show you this basket to order complete saga data. There's not much in it. All got the basket ID. This is the piece of data that we're going to use to follow throughout. So then it's the how do we find it? Or how to find? Well, the saga has this basket ID, and you're going to see that it's in the start basket tracking command. It's also in the order created event, also in the basket to order and the order completed event. Now you might be wondering, why don't I have the basket created event in here? Because the basket is already created when we send this command, so I didn't include it at that point. But alright, so we handle our start basket tracking command. Let's start the saga. So it knows how to find where it's at in the saga. We're going to set a timeout. Now, you can do things here on either side of it. Like if you like do a bunch of things, run a timeout. If we hit this timeout, then I need notified. This particular one, basket to order conversion, is did I go from a basket and turn it into an order? Am I really going to commit to this? I have it set for 30 seconds for our demo. So you saw that happening in our ServicePulse. The other one is orders created. When the order is created, then I'm going to set another timer. I'm going to have this timeout for order creation to order completion. We're going to check to see, okay, and if this doesn't happen within 30 seconds, then we'll hit the timeout. 30 seconds is only for today's demo use in real world terms. So when you have a basket, you want to check to see if baskets are abandoned. What would you actually set that timeout for? That's here. That's in the going from basket to order conversion. So if you're getting abandoned carts, that's that. You have an order and you're ready to go, but you kind of sitting on it a little bit. That's where this one comes in. So these are very real events. Then the handle order completed event. Now the other thing is this mark is complete. So that mark is complete is telling us that the saga is done. But of course there are other timeouts that I've had throughout. And then you could say, you know what, I hit a particular timeout and I'm done. We'll just mark it as complete. And then you can send that like I've lost hope. So these are different things that you could do for the saga, and this is what the code looks like. All right. Does it help to see the code? Help to see what it's looking like? And again, when we ran it, you can get in ServicePulse as well as to what is this doing? All right. With ServicePulse, it failed messages. So I'm glad I got screenshots because it didn't want to show it today. But if it does fail, you'll see something like this, where no handlers can be found, doesn't know what to do. I'm guessing with today's demo, I just didn't hit the timeout long enough, but you'll get these notifications. You'll get the failed message groups and you'll get the all failed messages. And then there's an option to retry all. So if you're like, you know what, saw what happened, the handler was down for some reason, we brought it back up, everything's healthy now, let's retry them. You can get more details on failures within ServicePulse as well. There's the stack trace. They showed some of these. But there's also the individual retry message as well. So if you're like, this particular message just needs to be retried, go for it. Looked at Sagas, showed basket to order completion using eShopOnNServiceBus. So with ServicePulse, you can track these things, sequence diagram for it, flow diagram, ServicePulse. The Saga diagram in ServicePulse starts out by not showing the details, but you can use there's a button up at the top that allows you to track the details for each of the messages. Show that as well. I think one other thing I didn't show in this code was the audit. So I added that. Let's go look and see our dependency packages. NServiceBus SagaAudit, which I have in orders worker for SagaAudit, just in the code. There, but then in our NServiceBus endpoint configuration, this one right here is the audits Saga state changes service control queue. I wonder if this has an override in here. I don't know off the top of my head. I'll double check the docs, but I bet you this is what it's complaining about, the Saga config somewhere in this particular thing. Sounds like something I'll have to blog about later. All right. We showed a lot in this our webinar. There are going to be resources. If you sign up for the email, you will have all of these links in that email. To my teammate Kyle, thank you for documenting all of this because it made it easy for those of us to on board with this. I was on a client where we had to use this and I was like, I don't know what this is doing. And Kyle and Eric were great at explaining it. Got those. The Supercharged Saga series. So Kyle not only goes into how do you create your own saga, but some timeout tips and unit testing strategies. We show testing just due to a shortage of time. If you've enjoyed this webinar, know that we have webinars planned throughout the rest of the year. From .NET Aspire and event storming to HTMX architecture, that's always a November topic because it's around .NET releases, and then advanced testing in December. We have all sorts of topics. These webinars are available on demand in the webinars playlist on the NimblePros YouTube channel. Each of those should have a link. If you want the thank you email with the supporting links, sign up. You'll end up on our mailing list for those, just aware. We also have some courses at NimblePros Academy. If there's anything we can do to help you out, please feel free to reach out to us. If I can get out of the way so you can chat. All right. Thank you all for coming. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. It's my first name, Sarah.Dukevich@nimblpros.com. Better yet, sign up for a thank you email and reply so you don't have to type that out. All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.